Hi. Actually, hi, everyone, and welcome to the first talk of the day on the main stage. My name is Katie Rose, and I will be the moderator for this panel talk. We're very excited to have these 4 representatives of B Corporation companies here today. And before I let them introduce themselves, I, of course, would like to point out the hilarity of the fact that for Women's Day, we have 4 men for our panel talk. But it's okay, because I'm in charge, so we're fine. Without further ado, actually, maybe you can go down the line, introduce yourselves, your companies, a little bit about yourself, and your favorite travel destination.
Sure, I'll get started. My name is Stephan. I'm one of the founders, president and CEO of a company called Cotopaxi. We're based out of Salt Lake City in Utah. We're an outdoor gear brand. We design and manufacture outdoor apparel, backpacks, sleeping bags, and the likes. At the core of the brand is sort of this deep humanitarian mission. We believe that companies have a responsibility to do more than just maximize shareholder value, and that's incorporated into everything that we do. My wife is half Indonesian, so my favorite travel destination is the island of Lombok, which is just off of Bali in Indonesia.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm Aaron from the Intrepid Travel. I guess what do? We do adventure travel, small group immersive experiences, help people go to places all around the world, meet local people, and really open and learn about different cultures as well. So very, very proud to help people do that. My favourite travel destination, working for a travel business, I think it should be pretty good. It should be pretty epic. So I've been lucky enough to travel to a few places, but I'd have to say Nepal. I went in 2014, and it was a place that really just changed my life a bit. Meeting the local people and the humility and the generosity of these people in such a stunning country is somewhere that I think you should definitely visit. So Nepal for me.
On the list. Excellent.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Gilbert. I'm the executive director of B-Lab Europe. I'm based in Amsterdam, and B-Lab is the non-profit, the NGO that is behind the B Corp certification. So all 3 companies here are certified B Corps, and so our organization is responsible for developing a set of standards that helps evaluate how companies are impactful in the world. And my favorite destination is a place I went to on my honeymoon, Vejer de la Frontera. It's in Andalusia in Spain. It's right on the Atlantic coast, this beautiful hillside town with whitewashed buildings, just a really beautiful village, and I would recommend it for a honeymoon or any other destination.
Awesome, thank you. I want to go to Andalusia. Great.
So hi there. Hopefully you guys will a little bit forgive me if I sometimes just peek on my notes. Otherwise, some English words could be missing. So my name is Max. I'm working as a sales distributor or sales director for Dr. Bronner's Europe. Who are we? So Dr. Bronner's is a certified fair trade and organic cosmetic brand from the US, from San Diego. We are, just a short note, we are pretty deeply anchored in corporate responsibility, sustainable agriculture, and animal welfare, and in its value system from Dr. Bronner's. So we are proud to be B Corp certified since September 2015. And what would be my favorite country or place? So that would be actually, besides my home, it would be Brazil. I have family in Brazil, and I just fell in love with the country and the people over there.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, you can hold on to it. It's fine. Okay. I want to ask you guys a few questions. Raise your hands if the ethics of the companies you purchase from is important. Okay, good. You're in the right place. Great. Okay. Would you spend more money on a product or service that was ethical? Okay, interesting. A 2015 Nielsen poll showed that 66% of global consumers are willing to pay more for environmentally sustainable products. And among millennials, that number jumps to 72%. So I think you guys were about right with that percentage. Do you believe that transparency is an important factor that a business should have? Yeah, great. Yeah, me too. Awesome. Do you avoid companies with bad reputations? Again, okay, yeah, not as many. All right, great. Awesome. So, businesses donating to charities is no new concept. They benefit from tax breaks and a positive public profile. But does that make them a business with purpose? What does it take to make a business good for the world? A quick Google search reveals what the Chronicle of Philanthropy cited as the most charitable public companies in the US in 2016. But before I show you those companies, I'm just going to give you the definition of charitable once again. So let's focus on the first one particularly, relating to the assistance of those in need. Philanthropic, humanitarian, humane, benevolent, socially concerned, doing good works. Keep those in mind, and now look at the companies that are listed as the most charitable. Yeah. So, I'm not going to point any fingers or name names, but at the same time that these companies have been listed as being the most charitable, they have collectively spent millions more than their donated funds fighting legal battles against native local communities whose environment they poisoned, or driven their employees to commit fraud because of the extremely high expectations they set upon them. You know, look after your employees. Or consistently drained or funded the draining of natural resources, or caused irreparable damage to the environment, or funded testing on animals, or avoided, not evaded, so it's technically legal, millions in tax payments, to name but a few. But what can we do about that? Who can we find that might help us?
We have a dream that one day all companies will compete not only to be the best in the world, but the best for the world. Others share this dream and have begun to turn the dream into a community. This community signed a Declaration of Interdependence and invited others to join them. Now thousands of companies from 60 countries are turning our community into a global movement to redefine success in business. B corporations use the power of business to solve social and environmental problems. Our largest certified B Corp works to inspire a healthier world through food. A food service company that serves over 1 million meals to low-income public school students every week. A manufacturer that goes green and helps workers move from welfare to a career. An online bookseller that recycled used books and funds local libraries and global literacy. An outdoor apparel company that stewards the environment. An ice cream company that maintains its mission post-sale. B Corp is a certification that helps consumers identify these change makers, and investors make money and make a difference. As a community, we are passing laws around the world, creating a new kind of company that serves society and shareholders. We are leading a global movement of people using business as a force for good. Join us. Be the change.
Great. So, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a better idea about what B Corporation is. But Nathan, perhaps you would like to start off in the right direction. Can you tell us a little bit more about what companies have to do to become a B Corp and what that means for them, and also for us, and how rigorous the process is?
Sure. I'll explain briefly the process of becoming a certified B Corp, but just a little bit more about what this is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a certification, but really this is meant to be a movement of companies that want to, as the video said, to redefine success in business. This is about identifying companies that have a purpose, that have values, that are thinking more than just sort of the baseline charitable actions that you can do, or in fact are actually greenwashing, and really are practicing what they preach. And so when B Corp started about 10 years ago, we recognized that we didn't actually have a way to identify those companies collectively. I mean, what I mean by that is there's a lot of great standards around organic or fair trade, initiatives that can help us better understand sustainability aspects of products or within particular industries, but nothing that really went beyond and looked at the ethical and purposeful dimensions of a company. And so we developed a set of standards that really allows us to measure the impact of a company comprehensively. So all certified B Corps have to go online and complete this assessment tool that measures their impact across 5 dimensions: governance, workers, community, environment, and their customers. And then, of course, there's a lot of detail within those 5 dimensions that we look at. And I'm sure all 3 of these companies can attest to the rigor of that process. But it really starts with a self-assessment. So the company is free to go online and take this assessment. There's a minimum standard of performance that has to be met in order to certify. And there's a whole verification process after that. But once the company is certified, they join 2,700 companies worldwide as a collective. This is really meant to be a movement with one unifying goal to redefine success in business.
Yeah, that's great. And you all meet up as well. Like the B Corps, it is a community. There's a lot of support between you all, isn't there?
And just to shout out that there's about 6 companies that are certified B Corps exhibiting. We're over around 3.15, and you can come find them. And this really is a community aspect here in Berlin, in Germany, across Europe, and in many other countries.
Yeah, great. Stephan, as a co-founder, you've been with your company since the beginning, obviously. So what steps would you say are the most important to take or decide upon when commencing a new business with purpose?
So I think it comes down to doing it for the right reasons. You know, in our case, my co-founder and I, we were, like many of us in this room here, we were just lucky being born, in my case here in Western Europe, in his case in the United States. And through experiences throughout our upbringing and our education and working in the developing world, in my case in Indonesia, I was working for a nonprofit that was dedicated to the elimination of child labor on the Indonesian archipelago. And that was a really rewarding experience in that we passed anti-child labor legislation on the municipal and federal level. We took over 700 kids from fishing platforms and factories and prostitution, human trafficking back into their communities and their schools. But it was also really eye-opening in that the sort of like traditional nonprofit model with a single source of funding, which that organization was like that, they depended on grants from the ILO and UNICEF, et cetera, can be really problematic and non-sustainable. So for us, starting Cotopaxi was a way to say there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to use the sustainably at scale, sustainable model of a business that's independent from cash infusion from the outside, that funds itself, but then dedicates a portion of that income that we generate to poverty alleviation in the world. So that's the why of why Cotopaxi exists in the first place. And I think that's where that motivation should come from to join a group of organizations like B Corp and go through that certification process. It needs to be real. It needs to be like deeply ingrained into who you are as an organization, and you need to hire accordingly. You need to make sure that any addition to the team adds to that flame,
believes in that.
as opposed to just being an initiative that's run by the marketing department because that's what you do, right? And it's just sort of a CSR type initiative. So I think that's what it comes down to, right? What's the reason? What's the why of why you're undergoing all of that? Because it is a rigorous process, right? It takes a lot. And starting a business is hard enough in itself, right? Just making it work and you know, getting a startup off the ground. So I think that's really, really important that you have that sort of like intrinsic motivation as to why you go through that process.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's really what separates B Corporation and the brands that work with it apart from other such companies. It's special. Aaron, on National Women's Day a year ago, Intrepid launched their women-only trips. This sparked not only a surge in the finding, hiring and training of new female guides, but also working together with local female artisans. But could you tell us a little bit more about this? And is gender equality something that you are actively striving for in your company? And what have you dealt with in the past? And have you witnessed a significant change? Sorry, it's a lot of questions.
Yeah, sure. I think we can work through them. That's okay. And it is really important, obviously today being International Women's Day. But as a business Intrepid, our purpose, you talk about the why, our purpose is to change the way that people see the world. And we fundamentally believe that people travelling to a destination, actually seeing with their own eyes what that culture is, meeting people, learning, listening, growing as people, they come back and through travel can grow and be bigger people, and the world will be better because of it. And that's the why we exist. And I'm so proud and passionate that I'm a part of that with Intrepid. Our women's only trips we launched because unfortunately in some places around the world, there's not equality between the sexes, that gender equality doesn't exist. So we wanted to give people an opportunity to go there and see it for their own eyes. And the reason when you see it with your own eyes is you might not physically be able to do something about it, but you can tell other people what the real story is. And that's the start of that movement. Once you tell people and more people know and you're communicating more and more, and then you can really get people behind it and create a movement. Yeah. So a few years ago, we started the first women's only expedition trips. Now we have 7, and they're really, really gaining momentum. And some of these destinations and some of the feedback that we get from them is the experience that these customers have when they go to these destinations and they see it for themselves. It really, really changes their life. It changes the way and opens up a conversation, which is really, really important for us there. Yeah. Across as a business, we've taken that a step further and we're seeing how can we address gender equality in our business and also externally. In a country like Morocco, we campaigned the government to change the laws so that it was easier for females to become tour leaders. We now have 10 trekking leaders in Morocco, in a country where being a tour guide is just not a job. It's not something that they can do. But we've found a way to help empower these young women to get out there and get good employment and also do a job that they love and they're passionate about. Internally within our business, we saw an opportunity where we wanted to highlight and develop and make opportunity for women within our business. So we created an internal process called the Women's Leadership Forum. And each year we have people, men and women from across all of our business, apply to come and talk about these issues in an open forum within our business and with industry experts, and really, really have a look at how we can implement change there as well. Not just a travel business, we're doing a lot of other stuff there as well, but it's all with that purpose of changing the way that people see the world there. So
that's amazing. I think that's a really great example as well. Even like changing laws or campaigning, that's exactly also what B Corp is about. That's fantastic.
And it's amazing. You wouldn't think that you can go to a government and a travel company can change a law, but it just goes to show that any person in this room actually can. They can do that if you've got the will to do it. So I'm pretty proud, obviously.
It's inspiring. Max, the original Dr. Bronner and the founder of the company, as well as his descendants, are very known for their activism. Do you think having a company founded by those who aren't afraid to stand up for what is right has shaped what it is into today? And also, is it ever a challenge to keep up those ideals when faced with continuing to run a profitable business?
Okay. First of all, actually, like our activist orientation is one of the main things that actually made us who we are, who Dr. Bronner's is. So, Dr. Bronner's, actually, we've been called a social justice soap company. We are a for-profit company, but actually we do have the DNA of a non-profit company, and that's how you can see like Dr. Bronner's actually exist to have an engine to change the world in a better place. So that's actually the sense behind it. And David, so we do have like 2 shareholders or 2 owners. This is like David and Mike Bronner. It's the 5th generation. It's a family-owned business. And David always calls us, or the brand, actually like the fighting soap company. On the other hand, Mike tells us like, okay, we are the uniting soap company. So we must be something in between. And we can definitely be both. Actually, like we can be a philanthropic company, but as well also a profitable company. So it is definitely both possible. And like for our case, it's actually like as David and Mike are just the only shareholders, and also we are family-owned business, it is definitely like the way that they are. Okay, sorry, just a short. Yeah, sorry. That is definitely for us. It's a way that they are living for a 5-to-1 rule, both. So that means like they are only earning 5 times actually the salary like our lowest paid employee at Dr. Bronner's. So with that money, which is still like open for us, so we can do or spend the money for like different causes like we really believe in. So if it's charity or if it's activism, actually.
That's amazing. But that rule is incredible as well for bringing a little more equality into the working world. Fantastic. So, for every $100 spent by a tourist on a holiday in a developing country, only $5 remains in the host community. This is from the United Nations Environment Programme. So this one is also directed at Aaron. What do you think needs to happen to change that?
That's a when you have a look at that, that's not a very good stat, is it?
No.
$5 of every $100, that's scary. I guess it comes down to an education piece is probably the biggest thing that we would need to do there.
Yeah.
And you have a look around the event here today, and you have a look at the education that people are not only doing great things, but they're doing it with a purpose. And it's the responsibility of businesses to do the right thing. It's also the responsibility of you when you're choosing to know where your money is going, I believe. An example with Intrepid is that we contract local suppliers that are owned locally in the country and try and retain as much of that money in destination as possible. We also had a goal last year where we helped 5 different projects set up a community-based tourism initiative. And this is communities in areas where by engaging in tourism and providing a tourism product, they can create a sustainable income for the local community. And by helping these businesses set these up, we don't have any commercial return from them. We want to set them up, and then we'll step away from the business, but provide volume and provide business to those tourism initiatives, so that they can be a sustainable community. So there's things like that you can have a look at through travel. Is shopping locally, using the local supermarkets, and don't use the big chains. Use local transport when you're in destinations. Eat in the local restaurants.
Yeah.
You know, things like that as well. Buy things that are made in the country there and not made offshore and shipped in from your souvenirs and things like that as well. They're really, really important ways you can just with a bit of education you can really improve that $5 retention.
Those are good tips as well. I think that's why you go to these places, that you travel to experience them. Yeah,
100%. I think there's also we have a local leader on every one of our trips. We employ local people to run our tours for us. And that local person, they will show you that local experience of where the locals would go and eat, and the locals would go and see things or buy things as well. And that can help that money get into the local communities there as well, which is quite important.
Right, makes a huge difference. Greenwash, which is disinformation disseminated by an organization so as to present an environmentally responsible public image. And I believe you used the term as well before. It's been used quite a lot now, understandably, because there's a lot of disinformation going around. So I'm going to address this to all of you, but first of all to Stephan. Greenwashing is a serious issue, and unfortunately a very powerful marketing tool. How do you recognize the difference between a good business and simply good marketing? And Stephan, Cotopaxi has utilized a modern approach of marketing, I guess, to its success. So perhaps you could begin and move on.
Sure. So I think to some extent, I do believe that the market will, and the sort of a new breed of consumers will address that problem over time. We see that, so our brand is built targeting a younger millennial outdoor consumer, right? They're between like 24 and mid-30s essentially. Yeah. That consumer is very critical, very resistant to traditional forms of marketing, very critical of any corporate issue type statement, much more looking at their peers for sort of validation, and really probing and questioning whether what you say as an organization is actually true.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
That's
right?
a great thing. That's
we
what we
absolutely
need.
welcome that accountability, and I think that makes me hopeful that organizations that are trying to pretend to do good while they're not, it can really backfire and blow up. And so that I'm hopeful that to some extent there will be sort of control exerted by the market and a more informed, more transparency-seeking consumer over time. What can you do to probe whether or not something is true? Asking questions, frankly, instead of just sort of taking statements at face value, but digging a little deeper.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where I see a difference between a U.S. consumer and European consumers. On average, I would say European consumers are already doing that more so than in some other markets. They are questioning more, right?
More.
Even like for us, some of the statements that we make in the U.S. that go completely are accepted, whether it's the communities we work with, let's say our llama wool sweaters, where we work with, that we source llama wool from farmers in the Bolivian Altiplano, we hardly ever get questions about that in the US, whereas here in Europe, people are really probing. It's like, okay, so what's the average income before you intervene in these communities and the average income per farmer after, right?
Really?
So very explicitly
Amazing.
asking, do you have proof for the claims that you are making? And again, that's a good thing.
That's great.
So I think that's completely legitimate. If a company tells you that they're doing something, probe, ask them. Don't take it at face value.
I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything particular, or I can? Sure.
I can say something. Actually, sure, greenwashing is a big issue, and especially like for us, Dr. Bronner's is a cosmetic brand, like a natural organic cosmetic brand. And of course, it is an issue, but I would just recommend, especially in that segment, watch out for certifications. Watch out for a certification like a B Corp certification, or especially fair trade certification as well. So that would just give you a hint, actually, how dedicated a company can be or could be. As well, another thing would be absolutely transparency. I mean, it's not easy for a customer to look behind a brand, so not always easy, and not every company is giving that kind of transparency, and of course they don't. So, but on our hand, what we try to do is giving the full transparency, not just only by the certifications we do have, but also by a full report, annual, actually all-one report, to show where the money was spent, or where it actually affected people. And I would just say, in that times we're living right now, it's definitely the customers have the power to dig deeper, and the customers have the power actually by social media, also by websites, just ask questions. So just go and to take that power, actually.
Great. Yeah, we need to take the power into our own hands. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to pose the last question of the day, which is quite a big one, so you guys can all think about it. But simply put, what can government organizations, businesses, and public do in order to create a better, fairer world?
You weren't lying. That is a big question.
It's a big question.
That is a big question.
It's a big question for 1 minute.
I would put that down to ask questions, prod and poke and learn, and talk about it. It's every person here has the ability to make change. You make change by choosing that you won't accept a behaviour that's not right. You can make a change by purchasing a product that aligns with the values and aligns with the world that you want to live in, not the one that you're living in at the moment. And I think that that's really, really important. It comes through education. It comes through people holding themselves with integrity and making their choices by their values, not just getting pushed something that they don't agree with, stand up for it. And that would be what I would say.
Great.
Yeah, I might just add, I think, what everybody has just said, but really, to have a better world, a more purposeful world, we need everybody to play their part. This is not just about companies being more purposeful and being more sustainable, but rather us as consumers, us as workers, us as policymakers, us as investors. I mean, we really need this whole system to change, and we're all contributing to this system from one of those different perspectives. And I think also people put a lot of faith in the nonprofit sector and government to create change, and yes, they're really, really important. important, but we also need the business sector to play its part. And so we often say that change doesn't come every 4 years when you vote in an election or whatever your election cycle is. I'm coming from the US, and so it's every 4 years. But the idea is that change actually comes every time you make a purchase. And so we've talked about how a consumer can influence the market and can really put pressure on companies to evolve and think more sustainably. So we all have the power, and we need to think consciously about the purchases that we make, the destinations that we go to, the providers of those destinations in terms of where we go to, the gear that we bring, the soap that we buy, I mean, where we bank. It's really everything that we do makes a difference, and we just need to be more conscious, and we can make a difference.
Amazing. I think that was a pretty great thing to end on. So that is it for today, but I just want to thank again Max, Nathan, Aaron, and Stephan for coming here and for joining us. I hope that was informative, and I hope as well that what it does is encourage you to ask questions. Ask questions, always. Be active. Thank you.